Forward, this book is a Star Wars fan. This is a story that takes place in a completely different universe. This place has nothing to do with any character or regime on the Earth. It is all fiction, and there is absolutely no reference to it. Ironically, it is purely a space opera. 1. Hello, manager. A long time ago in a far, far away. A long, long time ago, in a very, very distant galaxy. Star Wars. The Galactic Republic has ruled the galaxy for more than 25,000 years, and during these 25,000 years, the Republic has brought prosperity, wealth, and security to the entire galaxy. However, in these tens of thousands of years of history, the Republic has never established a centralized and efficient administrative system. Bureaucracy, oligarchy, and loose political organization have made the Republic a huge bubble. Big, gorgeous, colorful, but incredibly fragile. Compared with a country, the Galactic Republic is more like a loose alliance of sovereign planets, and countless hidden dangers are buried under this flashy appearance. Starting from the most developed star area in the center of the Milky Way, the Milky Way is roughly divided into the core area, the inner ring, the middle ring, and the outer ring area. The closer to the edge of the Milky Way, the poorer and more backward the planets are, but the more numerous they are. Among the countless contradictions in the Galactic Republic, the real undercurrent is the contradiction between the poor and backward outer ring planets and the developed and prosperous inner ring planets. This is also the contradiction between the exploiters and the exploited. The forces of separatism began to rise gradually. But before such contradictions finally pushed the Republic to the end, a huge spaceship descended on the model sector at the edge of the Milky Way, for the Milky Way that was doomed to be caught in a storm. Write down an X representing the unknown. You have to make a choice. Tang Xiao. The stars are burning, the people are suffering, and millions of innocent people are dying every day. And now, fate has put the opportunity in front of you. Do you choose to accept it or reject it? A deep and mysterious voice suddenly it sounded in my mind. Tang Xiao found himself standing in the endless starry sky, overlooking the countless shining stars under his feet. I am dreaming? Accept? Accept what? He raised his hands in front of his eyes, a bit illusory, but also very real. Suddenly, a huge warship flew over his head. This battleship was so huge that it took half a minute just to pass over him. Countless icy gun barrels constantly adjusted their direction, and then launched a huge beam that was more than 10 times larger than his entire body. I don't know when another fleet appeared in front, and the two sides are exchanging fire fiercely. Countless laser beams instantly filled the entire space, tearing apart the originally quiet starry sky. The interstellar fighters also began to take off, circling and fighting around the huge warships like mosquitoes and flies, and there were constant explosions flashing past. In the cosmic space, all this is silent, but it is still cruel enough to bear to look directly at it. The battleship on Tang Xiao's head was hit by heavy artillery, the outer armor was torn apart, and the flames began to spread. He could also clearly see that the crew members who had been sucked out by the vacuum were struggling desperately in the icy space of the universe. This is... Tang Xiao looked at another fleet in the distance. Those huge battleships had triangular hulls and tall bridges, surrounded by countless shaped fighter jets. The memory was suddenly opened, and he was shocked. TIE Fighter. Imperial-class Star Destroyer. This is the space battlefield of Star Wars. Everything around him suddenly shattered and disappeared like glass, and Tang Xiao found himself back in the bright starry sky just now. However, looking down from him, he can clearly see that wars are constantly burning on every planet, and the mushroom clouds of nuclear explosions are one after another. You have made a choice, and fate will definitely reward you. The low and mysterious voice sounded again. Hey! What do you want me to choose? I haven't chosen yet? Hey! Before Tang Xiao finished speaking, he was sucked by a force, and he was still spinning. It felt terrible, like being thrown down the toilet and flushed away. Hey! Let me go back! Arrived at the target galaxy, the name is unknown, and the coordinates are unknown. Start the planetary scanning function. The planet is 4,900 kilometers in diameter, orbiting a gas giant planet. The rotation period is 18 standard hours, and the revolution period is 402 standard days. Atmospheric composition, A2 level, can be breathed by humans. Main terrain, forests, mountains, savanna, plains. Surface water coverage, 8%. The surface of the planet is a native stratum with traces of intense crustal activity. Conclusion: this planet is a planet that humans can settle in, but the planet is too small to meet the needs of social development. The overall assessment is B+. The hyperspace core has an unknown condition and lost its response. The mothership will not be able to make the transition until the connection is re-established. Terminate the cruise and begin the interstellar colonization process. According to Chapter 7, Article 1 of the Interstellar Colonization Act, when AI judges that the colonization process can be started, it needs to wake up the manager, and the manager is solely responsible for the colonization work. Wake up the manager. The hibernation recovery procedure is being executed. Hello, Manager Tang Xiao. Hearing someone calling him, Tang Xiao woke up from his sleep in a daze. He only felt like his brain had exploded, as if he had a lot of things. The miscellaneous knowledge of management, psychology, sociology, basic agriculture, basic industry, etc., was stuffed into his head like a cramming duck, almost making his head explode. A strong sense of discomfort made him suddenly open his eyes, only to find that this was a pure white room, and he was lying in a glass warehouse, which was narrow but very comfortable. The white light from the unknown light source outside illuminated the entire room, and even the shadows were blurred under the omnidirectional light. Some unknown instruments are placed in the room and are constantly controlled by automated robotic arms. There are also a few pots of green plants placed in the corners to make the atmosphere here more fresh. Undoubtedly, no matter where this place is, it won't be the Mikami Hotel where I just slept. What's the situation? Tang Xiao muttered to himself. You are the manager of this ship, Mr. Tang Xiao. During your hibernation period, you have completed the study of the manager's relevant knowledge reserves. Now that we have reached a habitable planet, please decide whether to start the colonization process. The electronically synthesized elegant female voice came. Who are you? Where am I? I am the core control computer of the mothership. You are now in the living area of the mothership, and this is the medical room for administrators. Please go to the bridge when you are conscious, and if you need nutritional supplements, you can ask for it at any time. Mothership? What mothership? This is a giant mothership equipped with a hyperspace core for interstellar colonization, and the information of the origin civilization has disappeared. The mothership is now yours, and all residents and crew members have the greatest honor to board the mothership of your choice and begin this interstellar journey. The mothership has 600,000 hibernating residents and 50,000 crew members who are also in hibernation. Any situation on the mothership can wake up the crew for emergency treatment. All residents and crew members have been rigorously selected and trained to master different specialties, which can better serve the colonial work. In addition, the mothership also has a giant embryo bank, which contains 5 billion different human embryos. Through biotechnology, the growth time of embryos can be shortened to 10 years. Now, the entire mothership and everyone in it will serve you, manager. Tang Xiao's mind is still in chaos. First, he had a strange dream. The voice inside made him choose something, and then woke up and found that he had taken over a super mothership. Speaking of a mothership that can hold 600,000 people, it won't be small, right? He struggled to stand up and came to the mirror on the sink next to him. What caught his eye was a young man who was quite sunny, but his face was a little pale. The face is still his own face, but it seems to have undergone very careful maintenance. The skin has become much more delicate, and the hair and even the eyebrows have been trimmed, and it looks very refreshing. She is wearing a white uniform with gold inlays on the large lapels. The material is soft and flexible, and you can hardly feel the weight when wearing it. I'm transmigrated? Two words like a thunderbolt rippling in Tang Xiao's mind, his previous life, his parents, friends, everything, all vanished. But he came to this unknown world alone. This strong blow made Tang Xiao stumble and he could barely stand still. He stumbled to the sink, trying to wake up with cold water, but he started with hot water with a suitable temperature. He wanted to lower the water temperature, but he couldn't find the switch on the integrated wash basin, and a nameless fire began to spread in his mind. Turn the temperature down for me. I want cold water. Cold water, did you hear it? Tang Xiao felt agitated in his heart, he was angry, unwilling, and smashed his fist on the mirror in anger. The smooth mirror surface was suddenly smashed into countless cracks, and his hands were dripping with blood. The pain in his brain made him feel sick again, and he threw it out while lying in front of the sink. The cabin door of the medical room opened, and two young and beautiful female nurses ran in, one supported Tang Xiao, and the other immediately began to bandage him. The manager may have an abnormal reaction to hibernation. Antimonphine needs to be injected. A nurse exclaimed. In a few seconds, the robotic arm in front of the medicine cabinet prepared a tube of injection and handed it to the nurse. Okay manager, listen to me, your body is fine, this medicine can soothe your spirit, as long as you sleep no more than 2 hours in a normal state. The nurse held his face seriously said. Tang Xiao was extremely irritable, and pushed the nurse away. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com roared, give me the syringe away. Give me all of you. Get out. But, the manager. Roll. The two nurses quickly ran out of the cabin, but judging from the shadows at the door, they should have been waiting at the door and didn't leave. Tang Xiao let out a long sigh and came back to the wash basin. Adjust the water temperature to cold water. You can do it, right? A computer. I am the core control computer of the mothership, you can just call me the main brain. The water temperature has been adjusted, please use it slowly. The icy water poured on Tang Xiao's face, and he was much more awake and began to connect these things. Obviously, there seems to be a certain connection between the dream I had before and the current time travel. That mysterious voice let him choose, let alone whether he chose in the end or was trapped. In short, the last voice said that if he chooses, fate will reward him. Could it be the mothership in return? Then what do you choose me to come to do? Tang Xiao recalled the fleet battlefield in the universe that he experienced in his dream. It was obvious that the spaceships and battleships in it were from Star Wars. I'm here from Star Wars? If it's true, in that universe where the stars will explode if you disagree, this mothership is simply not enough to look at no matter how you think about it. Even if you drive the Titan in Eve, you can't hold it. Tang Xiao sat alone in the medical cabin for a long time until the master began to urge him. Manager, because the mothership's supplies are very scarce now, so if your health has recovered, please go to the bridge to preside over the work. If you still have problems with your body, I will call the onboard medical staff. No, go to the bridge, now. Tang Xiao stood up and said. Something is wrong with this mothership. The cabin door opened, and the green indicator lights on the white corridor lit up, pointing out the elevator to the bridge for Tang Xiao. The nurse at the door lowered her head and ran back to the medical cabin to clean up. The manager has woken up, please pay attention to the work arrangement of the staff in each unit. The manager has woken up. In the corridor, the broadcast from the main brain continued to echo. However, the whole place still looked empty. Tang Xiao walked for a long time before he saw two soldiers in black uniforms at the elevator door. Seeing Tang Xiao approaching, the two soldiers stood at attention and gave a very standard military salute. Hello, manager. Tang Xiao was a little uncomfortable, but nodded in return. Seeing his response, the chests of the two soldiers stood taller. It took about 10 minutes for the elevator to reach the floor where the bridge is located. Fortunately, there is a TV in the elevator to kill time, and there is even a terminal that can handle work at any time. But Tang Xiao didn't know what to do now. Soon, he came to a very spacious hall, and there were 2 soldiers at the door. They had determined faces, and when they saw Tang Xiao coming, they immediately stood at attention and saluted. In the center of the hall is a huge holographic projection star map, but most of the place on this star map is completely dark, and nothing can be seen. There are many seats and consoles around. It seems that if this place is to start operating, at least hundreds of people need to work together at the same time, but now there are only a dozen people working in the hall. "Hello, manager." Everyone present stood up in unison and saluted Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao nodded and looked out through the huge panoramic observation window, and a green planet came into view. Unlike the azure Earth, this planet has only a lot of green vegetation, so the whole looks green. At the periphery of the planet, white atmospheric clouds are clearly visible, showing the planet's good atmospheric environment. But the most conspicuous thing is not this planet, but an extremely huge planet behind it. Compared with the giant planet, this asteroid in front of you is like a mouse standing at the foot of an elephant. The pale blue sphere looks smooth and clean, with only a few dark cyclones in it, like a bouncy ball you played with as a child, obviously a gas giant. "This is the habitable planet we found now?" Tang Xiao asked. "Yes, manager." The holographic projection in the center immediately switched to the appearance of a star system, and the main brain explained, "The current star system is a binary star system, with 2 stars that are constantly rotating around a common center point. There is only one planet in the star system, this gas giant planet with a diameter of 48,951 kilometers. In addition, there are 9 moons around this gas giant planet, and we are next to one of them. There is also a satellite with a suitable climate, but the ocean coverage on it is more than 99%, which is not suitable for colonization. 9 satellites orbiting a gas giant planet." Tang Xiao frowned, thinking in his memory, "Okay, that means we can only colonize this asteroid, right? Then what should I do? Won't you give me some advice?" A 25 or 6-year-old young man in a dark blue military uniform stood up at the round table next to him. He saluted Tang Xiao and said, "First of all, we need to replenish fuel. The atmosphere of this gas giant planet contains a lot of helium, which can be used as an energy source for various ship reactors. Therefore, a mining station needs to be built near the giant planet. There are modular semi-finished products in the warehouse of the mother ship, and some small engineering ships are kept in the hangar to complete the assembly work, but these ships need to be piloted. So I need to wake up these drivers." "Yes, after you woke up from hibernation, the mastermind awakened a total of 50 of us to prepare for you in advance. Among them, 10 Marines, 5 civilians, 5 staff officers, 5 correspondents, 5 maintenance personnel and 10 mothership operators, in addition to 10 medical staff to ensure our health status at all times. Your authorization is now required to wake up more people." "Very good, what's your name?" Tang Xiao asked when he saw that this person was speaking in a prudent manner. "My name is Qi Jian. I'm a member of the staff." Qi Jian answered loudly with his chest raised. "Flagship, the name is good, very good. If there is no corresponding position, you will be our temporary chief of staff from now on," Tang Xiao said. Qi Jian was immediately excited, and he answered loudly, "Yes. We promise to complete the task." "Okay, let me see the situation of our hibernating crew." Tang Xiao sat down on the highest seat in the center of the bridge at the prompt of the master, and immediately unfolded a huge holographic screen in front of him. The people listed on the screen for awakening include 600,000 residents and 50,000 crew members, all of whom specialize in different fields. In the current situation, it is obvious that people among the 50,000 crew members should be selected to wake up. These people are more familiar with the work on the mothership. These personnel were also divided into different levels, including ordinary, elite, and Master. After that, there were 3 levels full of question marks. The conditions that need to be met to wake up these people are also different. For example, Master level talents are basically masters who have reached the pinnacle in their respective fields. If you want to wake up such people to face the poor and white colonies that don't even have tents, I am afraid that you will immediately kick your legs and turn your face to look good for you. Therefore, the conditions that need to be met to wake them up are marked under these talents, and most of these conditions are the conditions they put forward before entering freezing hibernation, and they are determined after signing the contract with the mothership. Tang Xiao was curious to see what the master-level people were. He clicked on one of them and found that this was a master-level astrophysicist. His requirements were a THRESTE villa, a private swimming pool, and the most advanced laboratory and a super radio observatory built on a plateau at least 3,000 meters above sea level. Click on another one. This is a master of quantum mechanics. He needs a laboratory in a dust-free environment, the most advanced experimental equipment, a particle collider that is at least 50 kilometers long, and 2 more than 20 years old. A beautiful woman as a private secretary and a velvet bed no less than 5 meters in diameter? Nanny? Brother, you are wrong. There are also some normal requirements. For example, the requirements of a master sociologist are very simple, not asking for food or clothing, as long as the colony population exceeds 10 million. This demand is even more outrageous. Okay bastard, degree. Tang Xiao decisively closed the interface of the master-level characters. This time, he didn't even watch the elite level. He has nothing now. Even if he wakes up those people, it is estimated that they will just pick them up, or they will die for you to see. Relatively speaking, there are no conditions for ordinary people to wake up, just open it and see. Basically they have food, shelter, and work. Only a small number of people ask that the work environment requires members of the opposite sex, or that they want to be able to eat noodles and other small conditions. Before authorizing the awakening, Tang Xiao thought for a while and asked, Master, is it only me who can authorize the awakening of the crew? And these people are all working for me? Yes, you are the owner of the highest authority of the mothership. All your orders will be executed unconditionally, including the self-destruction of the entire mothership now. And all the crew and inhabitants are chosen by you, and they have the highest loyalty to you. When did I choose? There are no relevant records in the database. Tang Xiao nodded silently. He quickly found the engineering department in the ordinary crew, and then chose to wake up 10 teams, each with 10 people, responsible for controlling an engineering spaceship, and then woke up 2 at the prompt of the master brain. A 10-man team of logistical maintenance personnel. After getting started, Tang Xiao quickly entered the role, and this kind of small-scale work assignment is still very simple. He also woke up 20 people at the Ministry of Agriculture to take care of the hydroponics cabins in the mothership, because after checking, he found that many of the crops in the hydroponic cabins had withered. No wonder the master told him that the supplies had bottomed out. After finishing the most urgently needed work, Tang Xiao breathed a sigh of relief, and said with Erlang's legs crossed, Master, please introduce the basic situation of this mothership. Okay. The holographic projection in the center shows the panorama of the mothership. You read www.yuyuganshu.com and then the main brain continued to explain, the civilization of this ship is unknown, the manufacturer is unknown, and the current highest authority owner, Administrator Tang Xiao. Technical parameters, the total height is 41.37 kilometers, the longest part is 10.92 kilometers, and the total weight is 373.079 billion tons. Armament, 5 mass projectors, and a point defense system containing 377 small electromagnetic rapid-fire guns. Total capacity, when the master explained it in a prudent manner, Tang Xiao didn't care about it at all. Because he was stunned by the holographic projection of the huge spaceship that appeared in front of him. This is a giant spaceship that looks like a crescent moon or a banana. The overall design is very aesthetic. There is a gap in the upper middle position. There are a lot of portholes here, and there is the bridge. And what Tang Xiao was shocked was not this supergiant ship, the size of which was directly equivalent to the distance from the imperial capital to Langfang, but because he knew this ship. Homeland. Kushan's mothership. Tang Xiao suddenly jumped up from his seat and screamed in shock. Of course, Tang Xiao, the famous game Homeland, Song of Kushan, has played it, which is equivalent to an epoch-making game that created a new era of space real-time strategy games. Not only that, this game is also known for its grand plot. Tang Xiao, who was still in elementary school at that time, was deeply fascinated by this game. But now, this can be said to be the iconic ship in the entire Homeland world. The Kushan mothership, is the one that he took over? This is not right. Why do things in the game become reality? Also, if even the mothership in Homeland appears in reality, does that mean that dream might be real? Now, really in the Star Wars universe? 3. Another amazing database? Mom, I really want to go home. If it were Star Wars, the terrifying Star Destroyer could not be resisted. Tang Xiao covered his forehead and was silent for a while, the joy brought by the reality of the Kushan mothership in the game gone. Well then, Qi Jian, my chief of staff, now you help me count how many defense forces we have. Tang Xiao sorted out his mood and decided to struggle. Qi Jian immediately entered the role, and immediately answered confidently, we have 5 Aero-type reconnaissance aircraft and 5 Blade-type light fighters. Tang Xiao kept looking at him with a smile on his face, followed by an awkward silence. After more than 10 seconds, he smiled again and said, go on, I'll be waiting. There is none left. Tang Xiao, who was already starting to feel a little scared, jumped up like his was on fire when he heard this, and yelled, Nima, a mothership carrying 650,000 people, only has 5 reconnaissance planes and 5 fighter jets to protect it. As soon as Qi Jian took office, he was obviously scolded in wonder, and he quickly lowered his head and responded, I'm sorry manager, the logbook has completely disappeared, so I have absolutely no idea what happened during the past voyage. The reality is, we only have these small ships can protect us. Master, call up the data, let me see how sacred reconnaissance planes and fighter jets can protect a mothership, and the bottom line is the performance of an Infinite Destiny Gundam, right? Tang Xiao sat back in his seat and said. The holographic projection in front of me shows a simple and ugly triangular small spaceship coming out, and the voice of the main brain comes, this is an Aero-type reconnaissance plane, 9.5 meters long, without hyperspace jumping ability and intra-atmospheric combat ability. The maximum cruising speed is 1000 meters per second, and it is equipped with 2 primary electromagnetic cannons. In order to make room for the afterburner, the 2 cannons are arranged on the left side of the hull and have a small amount of ammunition. Then a slightly more sturdy spaceship was replaced on the projection, with a rectangular hull, the cockpit protruding on the right side of the hull, and 2 6-barrel electromagnetic cannons installed in the middle. The master continued, this is a Blade-type light fighter, 7.4 in length meters, without hyperspace jump capability and intra-atmospheric combat capability. The maximum cruising speed is 857 meters per second, and 2 6-barreled electromagnetic cannons are installed. Tang Xiao fell on the ground with a thud. ORZ manager, what's the matter with you? Qi Jian hurried over to help him up, but he didn't dare to reach out. Tang Xiao paused for a while before standing up again, coughing dryly, that means we're basically unguarded except for these 2 things, right? It's all right, manager. We have very complete ship data in our database. Qi Jian comforted, with a little pride in his voice, have you forgotten? The glory of the ship makes us qualified to board this incomparable mothership. Master, what's in our database? Tang Xiao turned around and asked. There are many other spacecraft data in the database, including a giant mothership with a length of more than 74,000 meters. But to build these spaceships, it is not enough to have data. It needs scientific research departments to convert these data into production capacity, which requires a lot of time and resources. Tang Xiao's heart moved, and he quickly asked, "Show me what spaceships there are." The same data and entries appeared in front of him immediately, making him dizzy. There are not only spaceships, but also all kinds of data covering people's livelihood, society, culture, and other aspects of science and technology. This made him a little curious. The game Homeland should not have so many spaceships in his memory. Even if you count several works of the Homeland series together, there are no more than 100 items in total, so where did the projects with as many stars come from? However, at this moment, some familiar figures passed by Tang Xiao. Wait, a Raven-class battleship? Tauren-class battlecruisers? Cole-class battlecruisers? Orion-class assault carrier? Endless-class supercarrier? Seeing these familiar names and familiar shapes, Tang Xiao's mouth opened wider and wider, his chin almost falling to the ground. What's the situation? This gorgeous database. Does this include all the data of space science fiction games? Tang Xiao muttered. To be precise, the author played and $$ number system error, $$ repaired. The main brain suddenly made a noise, and then said, "These data originally existed in the database among them, there is no other information." Wait a minute. Then you said the one with a length of more than 74,000 meters, can't you? Tang Xiao suddenly thought of something, and hurriedly searched the list. Sure enough, an extremely gorgeous golden battleship appeared in front of him. Yay, the Spear of Dun? Really, the Spear of Adun? The mothership of the Protoss in StarCraft. Yes, the name of this mothership is the Spear of Adun, with a total length of 74,550 meters. Then hurry up and build it. Build a Spear of Adun, and our safety will not be a problem. Tang Xiao shouted excitedly. Now we don't have any possibility to build the Spear of Adun. Even if the workers and resources can be met, the huge production process gap prevents us from building even a small part on the Spear of Adun. Construction will not begin until our scientific research department can parse and digest the data on the Spear of Adun. Tang Xiao also gave a wry smile. He immediately realized that the result was predictable. I know. Protoss technology system is completely two systems from ours. It is impossible to build such a thing. Manager, what is a star spirit? Qi Jian asked. It's nothing. Let's filter these unrealistic projects and see what spaceships we can build now. Tang Xiao waved his hand and said. The production line that comes with the mothership can only produce two types of fighters, the Aero-type reconnaissance plane and the Blade-type light fighter. There is also a small transport ship that can transport goods between the planet and the mothership. To build a larger spaceship, it needs to be built space dock. In addition, there are some technologies with production processes that are close to ours. The scientific research department should be able to complete the analysis soon. Do you need to list them? Forget it, now we don't have the space and resources to invest in scientific research. Tang Xiao shook his head and re-entered the state. He turned to the civilian staff and said, "Have the materials on the mothership been sorted out?" It has been sorted out. As the core computer said, our material inventory is much lower than the red line. The Ministry of Agriculture sent a message just now that most of the crops in the hydroponic cabin have withered. A female clerk replied, "So, the best way is to start landing as soon as possible, and we should be able to find food on the planet. Qi Jian, go and arrange for the production of 5 more aero reconnaissance planes and 20 blade fighters. Wake up 20 aircraft pilots and first ensure the basic safety of the mothership. Then send a transport plane to scout the Dawn Star and determine the landing site. An additional 50 Marines will be awakened to stand by at all times." Yes. Qi Jian hurriedly stood at attention and saluted, and immediately went to work. One more thing. Tang Xiao thought for a while and stopped Qi Jian, now this is the starting point of our journey in this strange universe. From now on, we will make this livable. The planet is named Dawn Planet. And here will be our new home. Yes. Dawn Planet. This is our new home. Chi Jian was very excited and gave a heavy salute. All the others on the bridge immediately stood up and saluted, and then applauded, conveying their excitement to each other. Looking at the cheering crowd, Tang Xiao sighed, but there was no joy on his face, and he sat back in his seat like a zombie. He remembered his past, his family, father, mother, girlfriend. After experiencing the surprise just now, the mood gradually began to decline. Although he was in the cheering command center, he just felt that he didn't belong here, he just felt endless loneliness. If he could choose, he would rather not have this mothership, those fancy databases, or the spear of Adun. Go to hell. I just need to go home. Back home on that 21st century Earth. I'd rather these things are just game data on the computer's hard drive, and I don't want to actually open these things out to fight with someone. Maybe there are not so many magnificent waves at home, maybe there is no such response at home, but it is safe and warm there. At least there is no need to worry that a star destroyer will suddenly fly over one day and lift him up. Without taking care of the fiery bridge command center, Tang Xiao stood up silently, followed the master's guidance back to the luxurious room belonging to the manager in despair, and threw himself on the soft velvet bed, tears involuntarily falling. After that, he gradually fell asleep, praying that he would wake up, and found that it was all just a dream. For break through the universe, a burst of soothing music woke Tang Xiao from his sleep. He opened his eyes, looked at his surroundings, and gave a wry smile. Manager, I'm sorry to bother you, but there are very important things that need your decision. Chi Jian's voice came from the communicator on the side. No matter what it is, put it aside for me. Tang Xiao stood up from the bed, walked to the bathroom, asked the master to adjust the water temperature to an ice-cold level again, and then washed his face vigorously. He supported the wash basin with both hands, looked up at himself, whose face was pale because of the cold, and clenched his teeth. After a while, he suddenly got up, put on his clothes, slammed the door and walked out. Master, lead the way to the bridge. Manager, I'm sorry to disturb you. At the bridge command center, Chi Jian respectfully saluted Tang Xiao. Go ahead. Tang Xiao said nonchalantly. The engineering team has set up 2 mining stations near the gaseous planet, and 2 ships of helium-3 have been sent back and refined while you are resting. Now we can take off more ships, especially if they need a transport ship going back and forth between the Dawn planet and the mothership. Chi Jian said. Continue. Then, the reconnaissance team has sent back a report, and initially selected 17 landing points. We can choose one of them to launch the landing. Chi Jian's tone was a little trembling, and he opened an interface for Tang Xiao. You can do it as you see fit. Tang Xiao waved his hand impatiently. Chi Jian was a little surprised. Administrator, this first colony is likely to be our capital in the future. I don't dare to overstep and make such a decision for you. Tang Xiao was irritable, but he had to look at the screen again. He originally planned to choose a random place, but just as he raised his finger to click, he saw Chi Jian's complicated gaze. With expectation, pride, and a little unease in his eyes, he clenched his fists and trembled slightly, trying his best to control his excitement. Not only him, but the rest of the bridge as well. Tang Xiao sighed and looked at the screen again. This time, he carefully compared the landing points. The knowledge that was stuffed into his mind like a duck poured out like a floodgate. Combining the knowledge he had learned, he chose an area with mountains and rivers and a large grassland, pointed to this place and said to Chi Jian, just here, the latitude here is moderate, and there are water sources around. There is also an altitude, a hill of more than 1,000 meters is used as a defense commanding height. First, 20 Marines are dispatched to land, and the construction of the residential area will be started immediately after the defense line is opened. Yes. Manager. This is our first colony. It's our first step towards this universe. Qi Jian was a little excited and immediately arranged the work. After the landing point was determined, all aspects of work began immediately. Soon, a transport ship loaded with 20 Marines and 50 construction workers took off from the mothership and landed on the planet Dawn. Marines spread out, driving wild animals and setting down locator beacons, while construction workers began to organize their own mechanized exoskeletons for engineering. The signal of the beacon is normal, the manager can let the mothership enter the synchronous orbit. Qi Jian said to Tang Xiao after confirming the signal from the beacon. Tang Xiao nodded and said to the operator on the bridge console, "Enter the synchronous orbit of the Dawn planet and keep the mothership above the beacon at all times." "Master, you come to assist." "Okay." The engine of the Kushan mothership, which is more than 41,300 meters high, started again, and the extremely powerful driving force pushed the more than 370 billion tons of behemoths to move forward, continuously descending into the outer gravitational circle of the Dawn planet, and then began to maintain the same rotation as the planet. Speed. When approaching the orbit of the Dawn planet, due to the huge mass of the mothership, several earthquakes of magnitude 35 and groundwater jets were even triggered on the surface of the planet. After entering the predetermined orbit, under the action of the centrifugal force and inertia of the planet's rotation, the mothership needs only a small amount of power to maintain navigation. Keeping in sync with the ground beacon, a hatch in the center of the mothership opens, and an orbital drop pod is launched. Due to friction in the atmosphere, the disposable orbital airborne capsule began to burn the surrounding air, and when viewed from the ground, it seemed to fall towards the ground like a meteor. When it was about to land, the reverse engine of the airborne pod started, spraying roaring flames toward the ground, helping the airborne pod land smoothly. The construction workers who were already ready to the side immediately went over, opened the airdrop pod, and assembled the modular housing made of ultralight materials inside. The shell of the airdrop pod is the outer wall of the building. In less than 20 minutes, a two-story building was completed. The mothership is continuously airdropping buildings at the rate of one launch every 10 minutes, including housing, solar and wind power generation facilities, and water purification facilities. Tang Xiao also selected some farmers and maintenance workers among the 600,000 frozen hibernation residents to wake up, and then let them land on the Dawn planet in a transport ship. Village head. Once it started, everything went on in an orderly rhythm. Tang Xiao stretched his waist and stood up, looking at the busy people. His mood was still a little heavy. Looking at the vast universe outside the porthole on the other side, Tang Xiao walked over involuntarily, saw the stars that were unknown to many light years away, and thought of the inexplicable dream that might have caused him to travel. There was another nameless fire in his heart, his teeth were clenched, his fists couldn't help but clenched tightly, and then he punched the thick porthole. He growled like a beast, "Fate NMB. Choose NMB. Choose UMLGB, you know. I just want to go home. Play with me, right? All right. Then I'll punch through this universe for you to see. Then you can let me go home. Fuck." Bang. He punched again, and the wound that had been bandaged by the nurse burst open again, bleeding profusely. But at this moment, his eyes were full of enthusiasm. Soon it was quiet again, a little terribly quiet. "Master, call the nurse to bandage me." Tang Xiao said lightly, "Also, get the information I need, I have a lot of things to do." "All right, manager." He is now somewhat resigned to his fate, and Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com also faintly feels that he really seems to be unable to go back. If that's the case, and if you continue to be so muddle-headed, then maybe one day when the Star Destroyer arrives, your family will still be poor. Moreover, after seeing Qi Jian's eager and expectant eyes just now, Tang Xiao also understood that he could not live up to them. If he really fails, then how stable he can sit in this position is unknown. Human society is a very complex collection formed by various interest relationships. Although the master said that even if he ordered the mothership to self-destruct, it doesn't matter, but he is very sure that he really wants to do this, and I am afraid that the first thing to worry about is the rebellion of these subordinates. Tang Xiao sat back on the main seat of the bridge, opened the items of the colonization plan and began to check. He needed to understand what difficulties he would face and how to solve them. He is a very serious person. Since he is determined to do it, he will also be very clear about what he should do and how he needs to do it. He didn't like a happy baby to check over and over again those technological projects that were pulled from the game to reality, and drooled at those huge battleships that were not realistic at all. He was just seriously looking at what he should look at. And now the most important thing to understand is how to establish a colony. Under the circumstance of unknown environment, it is always the best choice to develop rapidly and establish your own stable power. Especially now, people are separated by belly. As a traveler, he deeply understands that he is actually the loneliest here. Moreover, who can guarantee that the current environment will not be another Truman world? Pressing the confusion and anxiety in his heart, Tang Xiao clicked on an entry in the Guide to the Construction of Interstellar Colonies, and opened the file to look at it. 5 Star Wars. It's hammered. Tang Xiao has been immersed in documents, and these documents soon combined with the knowledge instilled in his mind and began to become his own. However, it is still not enough to just read the documents. The most important thing is to apply what you have learned. Master, I'm going to inspect the Dawn planet and help me make arrangements. Tang Xiao closed the screen in front of him and said. Good manager. In addition, it is recommended to bring your personal bodyguard with you when you are out and about. I still have a personal bodyguard? Let him come over. Tang Xiao was quite interested in this bodyguard. The bridge door opened, and a burly figure walked in. He was wearing a military uniform, a standard inverted triangle shape, and that familiar face that was as strong as steel. As soon as he saw the bodyguard, Tang Xiao couldn't help but stand up, his mouth wide open. This, you, wouldn't be. Starting today, I will act as your personal bodyguard. You can call me T-850. The visitor stood straight with his legs like compasses, his hands behind his back, and said forcefully in a hoarse voice. You're the Terminator. Tang Xiao was stunned. Although wearing a military uniform didn't quite match the style of the man Tang Xiao knew, it was obviously Schwarzenegger. I am a T-850 combat robot. The term Terminator is not within the scope of my database, please explain. T-850 said rigidly as his body remained motionless. Master, I need an explanation. T-850 is a robot bodyguard equipped for you as a manager. Various important tasks for protection and combat data on different occasions are entered in his database, which can perfectly complete the task. The master replied directly. No, I mean where did this robot come from? No source information is preserved, the T-850 is stored in the mothership warehouse as a bodyguard for you and other important people. The mothership's factory can also produce more T-850s if needed. Tang Xiao looked at this face that he had seen countless times on the screen, nodded and said, take your weapon and come with me. The transport ship landed on the apron where the ground of Dawn planet was leveled. Tang Xiao and T-850 stepped off the transport ship, and the workers next to them immediately began to carry materials out of the transport ship. These workers are equipped with mechanized exoskeletons. Because they are engineering equipment, they basically only have limbs. However, it has a variety of tools installed, which can handle a lot of engineering work and can also carry a load of 500 kilograms. The construction of the colony has begun to take shape. More than a dozen two-story houses have been built, and supporting facilities are also under construction. Tang Xiao even saw that several residents had already deployed open-air hydroponics equipment by the lake and started planting crops. After seeing Tang Xiao, every resident bowed respectfully and greeted him cordially. Hello manager, I'm Gulaham, majoring in management. After your appointment just now, I'm the village head of this colony. A young man with brown hair came over and shook hands with Tang Xiao excitedly. Because I was sent down just after my appointment, I couldn't see you in person. It's great that you came down to inspect in person when I was sorry. Tang Xiao patted him on the shoulder and encouraged, I will continue to pay attention to the construction of the colony. If you have any problems, you can report to me at any time. It's my honor. You gave me the opportunity to board the mothership, and you entrusted me with a heavy responsibility. I can't repay it. Gulaham was extremely excited, but he still adjusted his state. By the way, Manager, in the process of our construction, we found some local protists, which should be intelligent life. How should we deal with it? Aboriginal. Tang Xiao frowned. Look, it's over there. Graham pointed to the edge of a forest in front of him, and there were some vague figures swaying there. Tang Xiao picked up the binoculars and looked around, only to see some people who looked like upright bears. They were about 1 meter tall, covered in animal skins, and held stone spears. They pointed at them curiously. There are also some cheering at the transport ships passing by in the air, and even kneeling and bowing. His heart suddenly became cold, and the smile gradually disappeared from his face. Tang Xiao, who had been very fond of the Star Wars series before, immediately recognized the names of these aliens. The Yuok people, really the Yuok people? He murmured. It's no wonder that the planet felt so familiar when I saw it before. The 9 planets do not orbit stars, but orbit gas giants. The situation is also very unique. It turned out that before he named it Dawn Planet, the official name was Ender Planet. The reason he knows this is because Ender is one of the most famous planets in Star Wars. In the movie Star Wars 3, Return of the Jedi, Ender is the main battlefield between the Galactic Empire and the Resistance. If this is the case, it looks like this is the real hammer of the Star Wars universe. It's really Star Wars. Tang Xiao covered his forehead and sighed. It seemed that he really had to worry about the attack of the Star Destroyer. His own capital is really nothing in this world. Although the Kushan mothership is huge, it is only a civilian mothership for immigrants. So the question now is, what is the current era? There is no war debris in the space around Ender Planet, indicating that the war that led to the destruction of the Galactic Empire has not yet started. But before this war, countless things happened in this universe. Several wars broke out, the demise of the Galactic Republic, the establishment and division of the Galactic Empire. In short, this is a war-torn universe. He thought about it and said to Gulaham, inform the mother ship, the next transport ship will deliver a few boxes of candy and some heavy machine guns. This kind of native aboriginal is not very aggressive, you can approach them cautiously, use candy to build friendship with them, but also fortify your defenses and build a few towers around. Okay, manager. I'll do it now. Graham replied. Tang Xiao patted him on the shoulder again and said, come on, Gulaham. The village chief is just the beginning. I look forward to the day when you will always be the mayor, and governor. Yes. I will definitely work hard. Graham's eyes lit up, he quickly stood at attention and saluted, and then started to work with 200% motivation. He picked up a large box and ran all the way to the wind power station under construction next to him without the help of the mechanized exoskeleton, and joined the construction work in full swing. Tang Xiao breathed a sigh of relief. He took a few steps forward and looked at the green and original ecological world in front of him. The gurgling water, the mirror-like lake surface, the unknown flocks of birds swept through the air, the frightened herds of beasts galloped on the grasslands, and the predators followed closely waiting for the opportunity. In the distance, you can still see giant trees towering into the clouds, as well as the endless shadows of the mountains. A thin layer of dark clouds was gathering in the sky, and there should be a light rain in the near future. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com. If it weren't for those unfamiliar animals and plants, Tang Xiao would even feel like he was in the African savannah in spring. This vibrant world finally dispelled the haze in his heart, and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. Manager! Manager! Wake up! Some anxious voices woke Tang Xiao up. Only then did he realize that he had fallen asleep without knowing when, and fell asleep standing up. What? Before Tang Xiao finished speaking, he only heard a series of sounds: bang 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 bang. But I saw more than a dozen boxes fall from midair to the ground, and the goods inside were scattered all over the place. What happened? He quickly turned around and asked the T-850 who had been standing beside him. Just now, the objects around you suddenly floated uncontrollably, but your physical condition is normal, just like falling asleep. T-850 replied simply. I fell asleep standing up just now? Then the surrounding things floated up. Tang Xiao turned his head and asked when he saw Gulaham beside him. Yes, we didn't dare to come over. Your bodyguard said that your vital signs were normal, so we didn't venture closer. Graham was still a little scared. What's the situation? Drunk oxygen? Or? Tang Xiao was shocked. He suddenly thought of a possibility, but he still needed further confirmation. So he nodded and said, forget it, I will take the next transport ship back to the mothership and give me a thorough medical examination. Mr. Manager, I am sorry to disturb you, but there is an urgent message that requires you to make a decision immediately. Just now, the mothership intercepted a hyperspace communication sent from the planet Dawn. The voice of the master suddenly came from the communicator. 6 uninvited guests hyperspace communication? This means intelligent creatures. And it can travel interstellar. Tang Xiao was shocked. Master! Immediately locate the location where the communication was sent, notify all fighters, and immediately rush over to block that area. Gulahan Mu, you are in charge of the command at the scene. Yes. A transport ship loaded with the landing team rose into the air and flew in the direction indicated by the main brain. Manager, you are not feeling well, so hurry back to the mothership. A female resident said with concern. I'm fine. Tang Xiao looked solemn, turned his head and said, let's go T-850, go and catch the person who sent the signal earlier. The ship has just unloaded its cargo. Following the instructions on the mothership, Tang Xiao brought the T-850 and a few marines to a somewhat barren hill soon. The transport ship that arrived earlier had already landed, and at the entrance of a hidden cave, more than a dozen marines were blocking the entrance, swiping a shuttle inside from time to time. These marines are equipped with 2 1TYPE assault rifles, which look very mechanical, but they are still a bit out of tune with this interstellar era. To put it bluntly, others are bayu and you still . This is not good. How is the situation? Tang Xiao asked. There are 3 people on the other side, but they have been hiding in the cave and refuse to come out, and they don't understand the language. It's hard to catch them alive in this situation, said a marine. Go ahead, you must catch them alive. Tang Xiao looked back at the strength of the T-850 and said. T-850 didn't say a word, grabbed a loaded metal box in the transport ship, threw it on the ground with a bang, and then pushed the box with one hand and walked forward, and the speed was not slow. There were several incomprehensible shouts from inside the cave, followed by several red blasting energy beams. Note 1. However, these blasters were all blocked by the box pushed by the T-850, causing no damage at all. Tang Xiao thought about it for a while, so he also walked in behind him. Rushing all the way in, this cave looks like a secret stronghold, with all kinds of goods, supplies and communication equipment stacked inside. 3 men in explorer costumes are hiding behind the box and shooting continuously. His mouth was still swearing, and he looked like a desperado. At this time, I only saw T-850 stand up, and several bursts of explosive energy beams hit him, punching out a few charred holes in the neat military uniform, but he just shook it and didn't respond at all. Then, he actually lifted the metal box that was as tall as a person, and smashed it with a bang. Bang! Gravel and broken cargo were scattered everywhere. The three people raised their hands and knelt down with a thud, and the scolding stopped abruptly. They were neat and tidy. Tang Xiao even wondered if they had practiced before. Bring it back to the mothership for interrogation and analyze their language. Then organize this stronghold and see if there is anything that can be used. Tang Xiao rubbed his forehead and instructed. The three militants fell to the ground. He looked at the blaster pistol thrown on the ground by the three, recalled the feeling just now, and raised his hand. Then, a miraculous scene happened. One of the blaster pistols actually moved, and then flew into Tang Xiao's hands on its own as if caught by an invisible hand. Tang Xiao looked at the blaster pistol in his hand, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. When the three of them saw Tang Xiao's hand, they were even more frightened, and their eyes were dodging and they didn't dare to look at Tang Xiao. Taking them out of the cave, they encountered a group of Yuok people on the way. Tang Xiao pointed to the group of erect bears and asked the three of them, Yuok. Even if the language is different, the pronunciation of such nouns will not be different. The three nodded hurriedly, fearing that something terrible would happen if they nodded slowly. Tang Xiao pointed to the ground under his feet again, Ender. The three nodded again, and one of them seemed to realize what Tang Xiao was asking, so he pointed to himself and said, Corellia. Then he drew an arc in the air and said, Tatoin. Finally, he drew another arc, pointed to the ground and said, Ender. So they mean that they started from the planet Corellia, passed through the planet of Tatoin, and finally came to the planet of Ender? Tang Xiao pouted, Endo should be renamed Liming now, it's my site. But now I need to go back to the mothership. Since it has already been hammered, and a few people have been arrested in the Star Wars world, there is no time to watch the scenery. Go back to the mothership, throw the three people into prison, and let the mastermind arrange the language parsing. Tang Xiao came to the main seat of the bridge and sat down. After thinking for a while, he opened the list of people who can be awakened. He really needs help now. Opened the elite level characters, and found that there are already many people who can be awakened. Among them are several elite biologists. Their requirements are a habitable planet with a complete ecological chain for research, and then a simple laboratory with better living conditions than workers. Knowing the way, wake up the biologists and let them report to the medical room first, then go to the bridge to explain their work after receiving the physical examination, and finally bring the experimental equipment and land on the Dawn planet on the transport ship. These biologists will start to study the biological chain structure on the Dawn planet to ensure which crops can be grown by human beings, and if not, they need to find suitable crops locally. In addition, there are experiments on whether animals such as pigs, cattle, and sheep can survive here, and whether local organisms can be used as meat. There are many similar jobs, so Tang Xiao awakened an expert in management and colony construction among the elite to serve as an assistant. Soon, a woman in her 30s walked into the bridge and saluted Tang Xiao, Hello, manager. I'm Daphne Clement. According to your appointment, I will assist you in the construction of the colony. Please give me some time. After I fully understand the current progress of the construction of the colony, I will immediately start to formulate further plans. According to the information in the database, Daphne Clemente has been in charge of refugee resettlement and post-disaster reconstruction in disaster-stricken areas, and has a lot of experience in this regard. Once an area was hit by a super tornado, it was almost plowed to the ground. She led the team to work almost non-stop, from the settlement of the tent area, to the distribution of disaster relief items, then to the construction of temporary housing, and finally to the reconstruction of the town. Almost all of them were single-handedly, and the completion was very good. In fact, her awakening conditions are not very high. There is sufficient material supply and enough manpower. Interstellar colonization is like this. After all, it is crossing the river by feeling the stones. Many experiences can only be found from similar work. Daphne Clement is like this. Okay, hard work, please start working. Tang Xiao replied with a smile, I will open the wake-up permission of ordinary residents to you, and the wake-up work of less than 100 people does not need my consent. You are us. The first chief executive. Yes. Clement raised his chest, saluted Tang Xiao, and said, there are still some people in my personal team. I hope they can wake up and help us. Tang Xiao waved his hand, I said, I don't need my consent for the wake-up work of less than 100 people. In addition, the 5 civilian staff who have worked here before are also under your subordinates, so let's set up the administrative department with you as the head. Understood. After Daphne Clement started to work, Tang Xiao sat down again and asked the main brain to open an editable interface for him, and drew a vertical line on it. Write several words on the vertical line from top to bottom. At the top, the Galactic Republic and the Sith Empire are opposed to each other, with a long section in the middle where only the Galactic Republic dominates the galaxy. Then continue down to the division of the Galactic Republic, which is opposed to the Confederation of Independent Galaxies. Tang Xiao later marks it as the First Galactic Civil War. Further down, the Galactic Republic and the Confederation of Independent Galaxies are marked with a cross respectively, becoming the Galactic Empire to dominate the galaxy. In the end, the Galactic Empire split again, and the rebels were opposed to each other, which he marked here as the Second Galactic Civil War. And there is a ball drawn here, which says Ender, which is the current planet of Dawn, and a cross is drawn on it, which is one of the main battlefields. This is the timeline of the main plot of the Star Wars world, and then Tang Xiao drew a big question mark next to it. Since there are no signs of war near Dawn Planet, it means that the current time is before the Second Galactic Civil War. But even so, it covers a long period of time. Tang Xiao took a deep breath and looked at this interface with a solemn gaze. Now, what era are we in? Note 2. Note 1. This kind of blasting beam is the kind of weapon in the Star Wars movie that fights Baiu and is criticized as a slow laser. In fact, it is not a laser, but a plasmaized explosive gas, which will be discussed in detail later. Note 2. Like the mechanic of Infinite Legends, Xiaojing will take everyone to appreciate the worldview and plot of Star Wars step by step. Even if you haven't read this series, you will read my book. Will understand. 7. The gaze from the other side of the Milky Way. The Galactic Republic, a behemoth that has ruled thousands of galaxies in the Milky Way since more than 25,000 years ago. Since its inception, it has been jointly ruled by the Galactic Council and the Jedi Order. Republic Era 25018, 35 BBY. Note 1. Coruscant, the capital of the Galactic Republic, is also the most developed and prosperous planet in the entire galaxy. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant and the Galactic Council are listed as the most magnificent buildings. There are 5 towers above the huge trapezoidal main building that is thousands of meters high and more than 500 meters wide. This architectural structure also marks the supreme authority of the Guardians of the Galactic Republic, the Jedi Order. An old man in his 70s with grey beard but with a high spirit and high spirits stood in one of the towers of the Jedi Temple, and reported in a cold tone, Master Yoda, Senator Palpatine has agreed to be in Parliament. Provide support and push the judicial fleet to send troops directly to relieve the siege of Newell. And standing by the window in the hall with his back to this side, is a green body, less than a meter tall, with long ears, a shriveled old man like a goblin, who is leaning on crutches, overlooking the entire Coruscant through the window. Master Yoda, the supreme leader of the Jedi Order, is also a respected elder. Hearing the report of the visitor, he did not look back, but nodded and said, "Thank you, Master Dooku. Very important, Senator Palpatine's help." The grammar of his speech is very strange, and he always puts the subject behind, which becomes a somewhat awkward inversion. The old man named Master Dooku also responded indifferently, he just nodded slightly, turned around and left. When he came to the front of the door, he turned sideways and said coldly, "If sending troops to rescue a planet besieged by pirates, you have to use personal relationships to push the bill through the Parliament, then tell me, the way forward for the Galactic Republic. Where? How should the Jedi Order behave? But Master Yoda just turned his back to him, and after a while, he said slowly, "Call me Master, you should." Dooku's cheeks twitched, and he turned sharply and slammed the door straight away. After a long time, Master Yoda took a deep breath, turned to look in one direction, his eyes became deep, and he gently shook his head. Outside the door, Master Dooku resisted the anger in his heart and walked quickly down the corridor. A pair of masters and apprentices in coarse clothes walked towards them, a middle-aged man with loose hair and a flat-headed young man who looked very energetic. Seeing Dooku coming, the middle-aged man quickly stepped aside, bowed very respectfully, and said, "Master." Dooku was annoyed, but after seeing the middle-aged man, he nodded in response, and walked out of the Jedi Temple. The middle-aged man kept his bow and waited for Dooku to walk away before taking his young apprentice into the room where Dooku came out just now. "Master Yoda, are you looking for me?" The middle-aged man walked into the room and bowed deeply to Master Yoda standing by the window. "The original force fluctuated, I felt it," said Master Yoda. The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes sharpened. Could it be that the power of the dark side has appeared again? The power of the dark side, this is not. There is chaos, I only see. Master Yoda closed his eyes and felt the force. A chaos? Where? Why does this happen? The middle-aged man frowned. "I can't know." Yoda shook his head. "The disturbance of the force is getting stronger and stronger, and you have to see it with your own eyes. Go to the model sector, Master Qui-Gon Jinn." The middle-aged man asked again, "What am I looking for?" "I don't know." "May the force be with you." Master Yoda sighed and stopped talking. "May the force be with you." Qui-Gon Jinn bowed deeply again, turned his head to the young man beside him, and said, "Let's go, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Go to the model sector." "Yes, Master." The young man nodded and replied. Master Dooku returned to his residence, turned on the communicator, and the miniature projector projected a figure of a man in his 40s, wearing a parliamentary robe, with a somewhat bald head. Dooku nodded slightly and said, "Thank you very much for your help this time, Senator Palpatine. Otherwise, the tens of millions of residents on the planet Neil will suffer heavy casualties under the siege of the Beskaren pirates." Senator Palpatine smiled and said, "This is what I should do, Master Dooku. I am also very fortunate to meet a Jedi like you who dares to break the tradition and is full of justice in such a decadent age. Master Warrior. But that's not what I want." Dooku shook his head and said, "This matter should not have been resolved this way. The situation we're in is like this, and it's not going to change because of the efforts of one or two of us. So, we should be thankful that this matter can be resolved. And other more serious things, such as the recent Mela, the dispute between Star and the Enterprise Alliance, is beyond our capabilities," Palpatine said. Dooku agreed, "I agree with you very much, Mr. Senator. This is not a problem that one or two of us can solve. We need more comrades." Palpatine nodded in relief, "This is exactly what I want to express. But I believe that as long as we stick to our original aspirations, the opportunity for change will eventually come. I hope this day will come sooner." Dooku's tone became cold. "Yes, it will come eventually." Palpatine said meaningfully, "By the way, I recently heard that there may be some problems in the model sector. It's a barren area of the outer western region, full of unusual hyperspace traps, and as far as I know there's a giant black hole. It's beyond the control of the Galactic Republic. What's the problem there?" Dooku was a little strange. "It's not important, just a little concerned. If you can help me and let someone investigate, that would be the best." Palpatine said lightly. "I'll send a few Jedi apprentices." "Well, forget it, I'll send a few bounty hunters directly from my home planet Serena." Dooku originally wanted to pass the Jedi Order, but he immediately dismissed the idea. "Thank you for your hard work, Master Dooku. Palpatine showed that meaningful smile again, bowed slightly, and ended the communication. Why do you want Dooku to do the force disturbance that recently appeared in the model sector? A very low voice suddenly came from behind Palpatine. You reading www.yuyugonshu.com. It's just like training a cyborg war dog. Only with a lot of commands will it slowly get used to your request. In the end, it's an order. Palpatine replied with a smile. You really only have this idea? The voice asked again. Of course, my lord. Palpatine bowed slightly, and he hid his expression well. Very well, since that's the case, the dispute on the planet Malastar still lacks some fire. You, just light another fire. The voice in the darkness said. As you wish, my lord. Palpatine still kept an impeccable smile on his face, and walked out of the office backwards. Note 1. The world of Star Wars is chronologically recorded using the Battle of Yavin, the first Star Wars movie, the battle in which the Death Star was destroyed in Star Wars, A New Hope. BBY means before Battle of Yavin. Before the Battle of Yavin, that year was 0 BBY. After the Battle of Yavin, it was a by several years, which means after Battle of Yavin, this era will not be covered in this book. The Galactic Republic was founded in 25053 BBY and was destroyed in 19 BBY for 25,034 years. 35 BBY corresponds to 25,018 when the Galactic Republic was established, so according to the year of the Galactic Republic, this year is 25,018. This year is also the point in time when the book begins. New fans can understand it this way: BBY is the BC chronology, which is backward, ABY is the AD chronology, which is straightforward, so that's okay, nothing else matters. 8. I need help. We, Corellia, merchants. We look for furs, rare metals. Please, let us go home. A cylindrical robot was translating word by word. Beside the robot, the three militants who had been captured before were lying on the table and groaning feebly, banging out a word from time to time. Tang Xiao sat across the table in the interrogation room, watching the performance of the three people with Erlang's legs crossed. T-850 stood behind him expressionlessly, keeping his feet flush with his shoulders, and a standard soldier standing with his hands behind him. Posture. 1 Earth Standard Day has passed. During these 24 hours, under the demands of the mastermind and the beatings of the Marines, the three militants were forced to say countless words for analysis. Maybe they came out of their mother's womb to the present, and they even counted the crying when they were babies, and they didn't say much on this day. Now the analysis of this language called Galactic Standard Language has exceeded 40%, and a certain level of dialogue can be conducted. But the parsing of the letters, words, and grammars that follow will take a while. The three militants had no idea that their miserable future was ahead, and they were still trying their best to pretend to be miserable, hoping that Tang Xiao, who looked amiable and young, could open up and let them go. Tang Xiao turned a blind eye to their performance, turned to the translation robot and said, "Where is the capital of the Galactic Empire?" The three of them were at a loss when they heard the translation, and one of them corrected, "The Galactic Republic, not the Empire." Coruscant, the capital. So who is the leader of the Jedi Order? Tang Xiao asked again. The three of them continued to look bewildered, shaking their heads to show they didn't know. That's right, the Jedi Knights during the Republic period were aloof but kept a low profile, silently guarding the Galactic Republic. The existence of the Jedi Knights is mostly just a legend in the eyes of ordinary people in the galaxy. Tang Xiao thought for a while, then changed the question, who is the Speaker of the Galactic Council? They still thought for a while, and one of them answered, Finus Valorum. Tang Xiao's expression changed, and he asked the last question, has there ever been a war on the planet Naboo? The three shook their heads. Tang Xiao stood up without saying a word, left the interrogation room and walked towards the bridge. The manager has left, let's continue. Please use the most accurate words to describe the appearance of this cat. The voice of the mastermind followed, and a few Marines with round waists and thick shoulders walked in and watched the militants snort coldly. Soon there was a miserable cry from the interrogation room. Back on the bridge, Tang Xiao sat on the main seat, leaning on the back and staring at the ceiling of the command center in a trance. Now he has narrowed down the current Star Wars era to less than 30 years, but the result is by no means happy. Because in the past 30 years, the galaxy will usher in an unprecedented terrible war and turmoil, and almost every corner of the galaxy will be involved in the war. In this war, the Galactic Republic, which has a history of more than 25,000 years, ushered in its final demise. Tang Xiao began to sort out the Star Wars plot in his memory. Now the Speaker of the Parliament of the Republic is Phoenix Valorum, and the war on the planet Naboo has not yet broken out. This is an important node. Because the battle for Naboo eventually resulted in the resignation of former Speaker Phineas Valorum, Schiff Palpatine became the new Speaker of the Republic. Then, under his conspiracy, 10 years after the Battle of Naboo, the Galactic Republic was completely divided and at war. The exploited outer ring planet of the Milky Way announced the establishment of the Confederation of Independent Galaxies and confronted the Galactic Republic. The two sides fought a 3-year all-out war. Because the Galactic Republic used a lot of clone soldiers, it was called the Clone Wars. Schiff Palpatine, possibly the biggest conspirator the Star Wars universe has ever seen, orchestrated it all, using the war to eventually subvert the Galactic Republic, wipe out the Jedi Order, and bring the resistance of the Outer Rim to one place. Sweep away. Then, he ascended the throne on the ruins of the Galactic Republic, and changed the Galactic Republic to the Galactic Empire. Note 1. Thinking of this, Tang Xiao sighed, only feeling his head swell. He groaned, "Why is this the darkest era? I can't be Palpatine's opponent. Whether it's politics or conspiracy, whether it's personal strength or power, it's far inferior. How can you let me live? Submit to him? Join the Galactic Empire and become a of His Majesty the Emperor?" Tang Xiao began to seriously think about this option, but then he sighed again, "Impossible. At that time, the mothership will definitely be confiscated by him. The countless data in the database will also fall into his hands." "Why?" Tang Xiao stomped his feet and stood up abruptly, shouting towards the ceiling, "Wow ah ah ah! It's so annoying." Daphne Clement and Qi Jian hurried over to ask. Tang Xiao shook his head and told them to go back to work. He looked at the backs of the two and said to himself, "I need help. A politician who can fight against Palpatine, yes. Politician. He understands that in the Star Wars world, at least for now, the Galactic Council has the final say. What does this show? You don't need a strong man who can destroy 1,000 armies with one hand. No matter how strong your personal strength is, you can't match the Death Star, but you can't match the Star Destroyer. But a statesman can make countless Star Destroyers work for him with the flip of 2 lips." Tang Xiao looked up at the backs of Clement and Qi Jian, and shook his head slightly. "They can't. Clement's major is not in this at all, don't expect her to get involved in politics." As a staff officer, Qi Jian was only an ordinary person, and his ability is still relatively limited. He also found that most people in the ordinary class are relatively young, those in the elite class are a little older, and there are many 50 and 60-year-olds in the master class. This shows that this level division is only based on the person's current achievements. As long as there is enough time and experience, ordinary people can also become master-level figures. But the cultivation of talents is one aspect. If you want to compete with Palpatine, no, you can't say that. Now he doesn't even have the qualifications to stand on the stage. At least get on the big stage of the Milky Way first, and then talk about who to contend against. In this regard, he does need a politician who is at least a master. Tang Xiao took a deep breath and started flipping through the list of people who could be awakened. Suddenly, he noticed that the list seemed to have changed. There used to be 3 levels of ordinary, elite, and master, and there were 3 question marks behind. And now one of the question marks has been displayed, it is legendary. Legendary characters. Mastermind. When did you unlock the legendary character? Tang Xiao asked in surprise. After you wake up, manager. If you don't have great abilities, legendary characters and higher will not be loyal to you. Forcibly awakening them may cause chaos instead. At this level, everyone has this ability, or even worse. Note 1, this is the main content of the Star Wars prequel trilogy movies, as well as the long animation The Clone Wars. 9. I want a spaceship. Tang Xiao hurriedly flipped through the list of legendary characters, but found that most of them were in a state where they couldn't view them, but there were still a few people who could see a name. What's up with these people who can see their names? Can they be awakened? Tang Xiao asked. Can't wake up directly. According to the agreement they made before entering the mothership hibernation chamber, they will swear allegiance to you, but this oath is difficult to determine for a person of this rank. So, before you wake them up, have a negotiation with them in a semi-sleep state, and if they're interested in your offer, they'll be willing to wake them up and work for you. In other words, the people who can see the names are the ones who may meet their conditions. Tang Xiao looked at the thunderous names, but was a little scared in his heart. These people are clearly from film and television works and games, and there are countless stories and legends written behind each name. It turns out that the legendary characters are like this. Then what kind of terrible people are in the stratum represented by the last 2 question marks? Note 1. Yes. Plus, if the negotiation fails, they'd rather sleep forever than work for you. But if we have fully satisfied their conditions, then the legendary characters can be awakened directly without negotiation. Of course, the conditions they put forward are often very harsh. The main brain added. Tang Xiao nodded. He suddenly saw a name and his eyes lit up. If it's going to be against Palpatine, maybe this guy can. Even if he could find any Marine at the scene, he could be beaten to death, but this person really has the ability to call the shots in the political arena of the Galactic Republic. But, this person is too scary. He has no loyalty, no faith, and no justice. For him, there is only power, only interests, and only ambition. Everything is a transaction. But only such a person can compete with Palpatine. Even if this is the case, Tang Xiao would not dare to make a deal. It's him. When the time is right, talk to him to see if he is willing to come out and help you. As for the consequences of doing so, who cares? Now he has only one purpose: war. It may be 10 to 30 years before the outbreak of the Clone Wars, and during this time, he must be ready for war. Then, survive the war that is sweeping across the galaxy. Other than that, he can throw away everything. Closing the page of the legendary figure, Tang Xiao only felt cold sweat dripping from his back. This feeling is completely different from the feeling of control in the game when you see it in the film and television. For those who can be said to be the top figures in the world, Tang Xiao has too little capital to fight against them. It's no wonder that the mastermind has to wait until he wakes up before opening the wake-up permission for these people. Are you awake? Tang Xiao leaned on the back of the seat and raised his hand to face the cup of tea on the table. After concentrating, the cup of tea began to be picked up by an invisible force and flew towards him. Tang Xiao was overjoyed, but the cup of tea fell to the ground with a clang, and the cup was shattered. Sure enough, it's better to wake up a few cleaners. Tang Xiao looked at the tea leaves spilled all over the floor, then looked at everyone busy on the bridge, and shook his head. In short, this mysterious force should be the Force, a unique force in the Star Wars universe. It is a supernatural and omnipresent force, it can be said to be all-encompassing and omnipotent. In this world, the person who uses the power of the light side of the Force is the Jedi Knight, and the person who uses the dark side of the Force is the Lord of the Sith. In short, in the movie, the two groups of people who held lightsabers and slashed at each other. The unprecedented war between the Galactic Republic and the Sith Empire was the confrontation between the light side and the dark side of the Force. In the end, the Jedi Order, representing the light, won the victory. The Sith Lord was completely destroyed, and he could only go to the unknown shadow to act. Having said that, I am also a person with the Force. Tang Xiao felt this power, and the teacup fragments on the ground were lifted one by him, and flew smoothly towards the trash can beside him. Then it fell to the ground around the trash can. Manager Qi Jian came to Tang Xiao, who was having a good time, looked at the pieces of teacups flying everywhere, and sincerely congratulated, "Congratulations, Manager, you have mastered this mysterious and powerful power. Do you have anything to do with me?" Tang Xiao asked. Yes. Just now, our staff department completed a plan, which is aimed at our military power. Please take a look. Qi Jian sent a data packet to the screen in front of Tang Xiao. Tang Xiao looked at the plan and the listed data displayed on the screen, and said, "Tell me the conclusion first." Qi Jian nodded and said, "The most important thing for us now is to improve the defense capability of the mothership. It is far from enough to rely on the blade fighter. That thing is a sealed iron box with a cannon installed, and then ATA on the engine. So we need a stronger starfighter, and now the production line inside the mothership can directly produce the fighter, which temporarily saves the time and resources of building the space dock." Tang Xiao motioned for him to continue. "We hope to start the research and development of the Blade 2 fighter as soon as possible. Let the people in the research department analyze the technology of this fighter as soon as possible, and transform the production line to start production. In addition, we also need to start the research on infrared laser weapons, and the Blade 2. The weapon system of the fighter is upgraded," Qi Jian said, and took out the data of a fighter. Tang Xiao looked at the fighter, and he recognized that it was actually the fighter in Homeland 2, and it was indeed an upgraded version of the current Blade fighter. The shape is softer and the handling performance is better, but the firepower is still as weak as ever, with only one 6-barrel electromagnetic cannon. No wonder Qi Jian also requested to study infrared laser weapons. This is the technology of primary laser weapons in the stars. As of now, it is indeed very practical. However, after reading the data, Tang Xiao shook his head. He knew very well what kind of opponent he was about to face. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Just relying on this little improvement in the combat effectiveness of the Blade 2 fighter was simply a drop in the bucket. According to his knowledge of the Star Wars world, the main model of the Galactic Republic should be the ARC-170 heavy fighter. In front of this fighter, whether it is a Blade fighter or a Blade 2, they are just a group of flies that can be killed at any time. He thought about it and said, "I will immediately set up a physics research department and start researching infrared laser weapons." "Then, what about the Blade 2 fighter?" Qi Jian asked. "This fighter has limited improvement in our combat capabilities. Now we can increase the production of Blade fighters, increase the number of fighters to 100, and wait for the replacement of infrared laser weapons. This is our mission goal now," Tang Xiao said. However, the reliability and combat capability of the Blade fighter are not ideal. If there is a conflict, many pilots will be sacrificed for nothing. Qi Jian also wanted to argue. "Isn't it worthwhile to drive the Blade 2? We need a more powerful fighter. It is best to have a fighter capable of fighting in the atmosphere. The enemy we are about to face is far more powerful than we imagined." Tang Xiaopei interrupted him with a wave of his hand. "You must understand that we don't have the extra time and resources to research and manufacture too many transition products. In fact, he has already selected the fighter model he needs to study next. CF/A-17 Ghost Fighter from StarCraft. Note 1, by the way, characters and technologies that are too outrageous and too dramatic, such as Gundam, will not appear in this book. 10 Research Projects. The CF/A-17 Ghost Fighter is the main fighter of the Terran Empire in StarCraft. Tang Xiao also discovered that the CF/A-17 Ghost fighter that can be researched and manufactured now is only an early model, and has not been equipped with a pulsed laser for ground attack. But no matter what, the Ghost fighter is an excellent fighter that can fight in the atmosphere and the universe at the same time, and in the StarCraft plot is also proved in the war with the Protoss and the Zerg. And the later models of this fighter will also be equipped with a stealth system, making it a truly terrifying killer stealth fighter. Although the technology system of the mothership now belongs to Homeland, in order to build a Ghost fighter, it is necessary to overcome the gap in production technology and technology between Homeland and StarCraft, but Tang Xiao believes that this difficulty must be overcome. As a technology product of the human system, the resources needed to digest and analyze the technology of the Terran Empire in StarCraft should still be under control. Seeing that the manager had made up his mind, Qi Jian did not continue to entangle. As a subordinate, he needs to put forward his opinions and concerns, and then let Tang Xiao make a decision. Now all he had left was obedience. Tang Xiao called Daphne Clement and asked, "In the warehouse of the mothership, is there still a modular building of the Engineering Research Institute? How large is it?" Clement replied, "Considering the dangers of engineering research and many experiments that require a lot of space, the mothership carries a modular scientific research space station. It can accommodate about 20 experts in the experiments and research are carried out there. Give the people in the engineering department an order to start building this engineering research space station immediately, preferably starting today." Tang Xiao ordered. "Yes." Tang Xiao opened the Character Awakening database of the mothership and began to search for suitable candidates. Among the elite, he found 3 engineering specialists, awakened them and called them to the bridge. The 3 experts, 2 women and 1 man, were all between 30 and 40 years old. When they saw Tang Xiao, they saluted respectfully, and the leading female expert said, "Hello manager. My name is Guan Yan, an energy expert. This is Dr. Feng Yongwang, an expert in mechanics, and this is Dr. Chu Suan, an expert in materials science." Tang Xiao was not polite, and directly assigned them a task. "I need to start the research on 2 projects at the same time, one is the infrared laser weapon, and the other is the research of this CF/A-17 Ghost fighter. What conditions are needed, I will try my best to be satisfied." Guan Yan frowned for a while and said, "Research on infrared laser weapons, this requires a physics laboratory. It's better to equip me with at least 20 people majoring in physics. But this fighter..." She handed the data to the male expert. "What do you think?" "Dr. Feng." Feng Yongwang with glasses looked at the Ghost fighter and shook his head slightly. "There are many technological systems in it that are different from ours. Although it is not impossible to overcome this problem, it may take longer. Dr. Chu and I, come on, let's do some preparatory work first. The initial staffing doesn't need to be too much, 5 mechanical majors are enough. After that, I will put forward more personnel and material requirements one after another." "What about the time?" Tang Xiao asked. "The complete data is here, so the research and application of infrared laser weapons should be completed within a month." Dr. Guan Yan replied. "The Ghost fighter is hard to say. Although the data is complete, it will take a year to analyze it to the extent that we can use it and produce it. It would be nice if there were experts from the master class to lead my team." Feng Yongwang said. "I will fully cooperate with the personnel and materials. Let's start working first." "It's hard for you." Tang Xiao nodded and said. "Where is it, manager? You are the one at the helm, and we just need to do our job well. It should be us thanking you." Chu Suan said to Tang Xiao with a smile. "I will make a list of requirements." Guan Yan said. "No matter where he is, scientific research is a labor-intensive, time-consuming, and labor-intensive activity." Seeing the long list of supplies constantly appearing on the screen, Tang Xiao kept a smile on the surface, but his heart was bleeding. Now the colony has finally started to improve, with some material reserves, and now it is all thrown to the scientific research team. The outer ring of the Milky Way, the western region, the model sector, and the hyperspace. I'm about to leave the hyperspace jump, it's time to wake up, dear. On a disc-shaped Corellia YT-1000 light spacecraft, a human woman who controlled the spacecraft said to the pilot next to it. Dozing in the driver's seat was a man in his 30s. He shook his head and said, "I'm really starting to miss Corellia's sparkling wine. After finishing this order, I have to go home and have a good night's sleep. Feel, at least 3 days. The Corellian galaxy is not a place where people like us can live at the bottom, Quinto. I prefer it now, free and unfettered." The woman walked over and kissed her lover's forehead. "The damned machine has a problem again." There was a roar from the rear cabin, followed by a thud. Someone must have kicked the machine, and then a Rhodian came out. The Rhodian looks like an upright seahorse, with bulging eyes without lids, and mouth parts sticking out like straws. UU reading www.uugonshu.com. This is a hunting nation. Even if they join the Galactic Republic and enter the interstellar era, they are more engaged in the work of bounty hunters. What happened? Spade. Quinto asked back. "Ah, it's not a big problem, it's just death. Fallacy, you should be able to see the 7th indicator light on your left flashing abnormally, right?" the Rhodian said angrily. The woman looked back and suddenly called out, "My God!" The hyperspace diverter didn't respond. How could this be? She hurriedly operated on the console for a while, but it was useless. Well, now we can only pray that we won't be torn apart when we leave the hyperspace. Spade spread his hands and sat on the ground to accept his fate. Hyperspace shunts are there to protect us from being torn apart by physical phenomena when we leave hyperspace, and if this thing fails, it's impossible for us to start a hyperspace jump. So, now if it weren't for us, we've had 8 lifetimes of luck, and if something goes wrong during the jump, it's... Quinto didn't finish his sentence, and the spaceship left the hyperspace. If you look outside, you will see that the spaceship appears in space almost instantly from nothing. After a violent tremor, they finally stabilized the spacecraft. Quinto looked at the behemoth that appeared in front of him and murmured, "That's man-made. Spirit of Kerea. What is this?" Fallacy was stunned when he saw the terrifying scene in front of him. It can be seen on the radar that a giant moon-shaped spacecraft is slowly running on the synchronous orbit of the planet. The ship was so huge that when they looked through the porthole of their YT-1000 light ship, all they could see was an endless wall of metal.